Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Joy. I wanted to read one of my father's poems. He was really able to capture different moods. I believe it was his only outlet was to write these poems that he really couldn't share with other people what he was experiencing, because his experiences were very deep and emotional. And so he learned how to write, and that was his outlet. He could express. And to get to know him a little bit better, I would make little booklets of his poems. And this is one. It's going to be backwards here because the camera captures everything backwards. But this is one of the little booklets I made of his poems. It's backwards in the camera, but it's called Gentle Breeze. And there's about 10 poems in here. And I got to know him a little more intimately by helping him with his poems. And he used to love to give his little booklets out to people. He would distribute his books of poetry to people. And he passed away last year in, I think, June of 2017. He was 98. And he took care of, he and my mother had a wonderful life together. They were lifelong companions, completely faithful to each other. Very wonderful union they had. It was a very tight bond. And she had Alzheimer. She got it, diagnosed with it in her 70s, and he took care of her for another 20 years. He was the sole caregiver. She had Alzheimer for like 20 years as gradually her capabilities decreased. And so he's in his 90s, and he's alone in the house with her, and she's completely crazy. The disease makes the person completely nuts. And he's just taking care of her day after day, seeing to her needs, taking care of her. And he did that for like 20 years. So here's this poem. It's called Ain't Nothing You Can Do About It. Now he's in his 90s, and she has this disease, and he's taking care of her. So he writes, time, unforgiving time, relentlessly devours joy and laughter. Where did bright days' glow go? Only soggy, dreary cheerlessness, bleakness remains. Today was yesterday's future. There is no visible change. All that remains are memories of past years and events and what we tried to attain. I'm reading some of my father's poetry. He's in his 90s, and he's taking care of my mother, who has Alzheimer. And he's alone in the house with her, trying to take care of her. And his outlet was this writing. So he continues, now is the time of falling rain, and dreary, deep, black, dark, dank days. Gone the moments of beauty. It's hard to read this. That's really hard to read this. I'll try. It's just really intense what he's experiencing, and he's being able to capture it by writing it down. It was his outlet for his the intensity of what he was experiencing. Gone the moments of beauty, enrichment of bright sunshine, warm, romantic embracement. All that remains are drab recollections, embellished by the sound of rainfall. Rain. The longer it falls, the less we appreciate it. Helplessly, we attend the symphony of irritating sound of rain and the loss of romanticism. Stuck in the house, no long walks, only bubbling puddles do we see. Rivulets on the window pane, their pattern becomes boring, sore, hurting, aching. All we can hope for is that the rain will stop and life can begin again. Perhaps summer was too warm. Some son opted for a vacation. Wish I knew where he went. Whew. Just imagine what he was experiencing. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. The rain was falling outside, but also he was experiencing rainy days inside. Krishna. Yeah. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's a lot of poems in here about rain. Krishna. Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Basically, he was a very optimistic person. So even, you can see, even though he's feeling so depressed by his situation, by the weather, by getting old, and not being able to share loving exchanges with his mate, who's now very, very sick with this Alzheimer, he still ends with kind of a joke. He says, perhaps summer was too warm. The son opted for a vacation. Wish I knew where he went. He was a survivor, I tell you. He survived. He did a lot of service for Krishna. He was forced to. I mean, you know, I joined the movement, was very active in the early days of the Krishna consciousness movement, and I stayed with it. I'm still with it to one degree or another. I mean, my participation is changed now that I'm older, but for 40 years he was exposed to Hare Krishna, and he did a lot of service too. Yeah, he actually got to serve the devotees prasadam on Janmashtami one year. It was really nice. He's been on Harinam, he's worn deity garlands, both he and my mother, so they've given donations, they've brought boga, they visited several temples, and so, he's participating one way or another, They had the books in the house. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah, I also share that with them. Hare Krishna. Actually, my father was a good friend. I really, you know. My mother was a little distant. They were both wonderful, and, you know, I was very fortunate to have parents like that. But I think it's natural. The daughter is a little closer to the father because it crosses over, and the mother kind of favors the son. It crosses over like that, so it's kind of natural. But yeah, it was really, you know, he was a good friend. Even if he hadn't been my father, I would have liked him anyway. Everybody liked him. You know, I had to stand in line. Everybody liked him. There's this picture there. It's a funny little picture. Maybe you can see it. You see his picture? There he is. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna. He's a sweet person. Oh, Govinda. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Govinda. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. He makes me laugh. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He was, toward the end, he was in the hospital a lot because he kept falling down. That happens to some older people. Is they can't keep their balance, and all of a sudden they fall down and they bang their head, and off they go to the hospital for x-rays, whatever. So one time he was there, he had fallen down again, and I was there with him and concerned about him. Are you okay, Dad? You know, what's going on? And he turned over and he went like this. And I thought he was mad at me. Why is he doing that? Why is he going like this to me? And then I realized he was saying, I'm strong, don't worry, I'm strong. It took me a while to figure that one out. It's hard to figure him out sometimes. I'm strong, don't worry, I'm strong. Hare Krishna. Oh my God. I tell you, those were wild times, you know, those 4 or 5 years seeing to his care were wild times. Oh my God. The stuff he got into. Oh, Krishna. Oh boy, what a trip. I tell you, it was a trip. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Rama, Hare. Stubborn. Oh my God. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare. It was a tricky balance because I had to take control of the situation, you know, because he was in his 90s. He couldn't manage things. But he needed to feel like he was. He had to feel like he was in control. And so it definitely couldn't be me, you know, telling him what to do, because that would ruin the father-daughter thing. So I had to figure out how to get things done without me getting him to do it. So there was different ways to get around that. Like, if somebody with a uniform or a badge told him to do so, he would do it. If I tried to tell him to do something, I don't know. So it was always a little bit of a challenge to get done what needed to get done, so that the dynamics of the relationship could remain intact. But we managed to do it. Just one time, he wanted to go to a little store, and he was going to walk there. So I walked with him. It wasn't too far away, although it was a little dangerous for him, but he had a cane then, and I thought, well, if I just go with him, you know, I can kind of make sure he doesn't fall over. And so we went to a little store, and then we were coming back, and he fell over. There wasn't anything I could do. I tried to catch him, but he was gone. And so we had to get help, you know. So when the help came, he told him, she pushed me. I'm like, don't do that. It's not a joke. If you do that, I was like, oh my God, Dad, don't do that. Because if you do that, you know, senior services and the government, you know, they can get on my case, you know, tell them I pushed you. I didn't push you. Because they tried to catch him, and he was saying, no, go away. And I was trying to catch him. He says, oh, she pushed me. But you don't do that, you know. So it was like that constantly with him. It was like, whoa. Yeah, I guess I miss him, you know. He was a lot of fun. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. So just remembering. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. That I got to do some service for my father like that. Yeah, it was nice. Hare Krishna. Boy, I got to see him, you know. Because he was all alone, you know. All there was me, and I'm just a devotee of Krishna. So basically, he was all alone. Yeah, my mother was gone. My brother passed away, and all his brothers and cousins and everything, they had all passed away years ago, because he was the youngest in the group. So he's basically all alone. But he did really well with it. Did really well. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. He had love in his heart, so he was, wherever he went, he could relate to anybody. There were no strangers for him. He knew everybody, even though he'd never met them before. He was that kind of person. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. When he would refer to God, he would call him the boy upstairs. That boy upstairs. He'd always call him a boy. A youth. You know, people tend to refer to God as, you know, the old man, you know. No, he said that boy upstairs. He said, boy. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Yeah. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna. The people that come into our life, it's Krishna's arrangement, and our loving sentiments belong to Krishna. But in the association of other people, then we can also understand and have access to this platform of loving sentiment. I was thinking about that today, actually. One song came on the radio, something about sharing love with you. It was a song, some cinema song. It was a regular song, It was a pretty little song. It was about love, and I don't remember all the lyrics, but one little part of it popped out at me when I heard the song. The mood of it was they were looking forward to sharing love with someone. And I was thinking, yeah, that's what it's about. And what is that love? That's love of God. Sharing love of Krishna with each other. Like we share realizations if we have them. Some devotees don't have very many realizations yet. They're kind of new on the path. They're getting every day a little stronger, a little more realization. But they don't have all that much to share. Or they share prasadam. Or they share something that they read. Or they share their mind and confidence. The sharing is really, really what it's all about. And the highest thing to share is love. Materialists, they do it. They're not, it's contaminated and it's on the material platform. It's a lustful kind of sharing lustful experience. But in love of God, in love of Krishna, sharing love of Krishna, just like we share realizations or we share prasadam, learning to share love of God with each other. And I was thinking how the Lord puts different people in our paths where we get to experience that a little bit. And I experienced that actually with my father. It's not like he was, an official, recognized, initiated disciple of anybody. But he had a basic love of God in his heart. He had I don't know who he was, but he had a lot of integrity, a great sense of humor, and right up to the last minute, even when he left, he had his boots on. He was not like a defeated personality at all. He had actually no fear. I didn't see any fear in him. He wasn't fearful. So he had a connection with the personality of Godhead, either from a previous life or whatever. But so that person, we were able to share on a platform, a spiritual platform. And to one degree or other, we were able to share love of God. To be able to share love of God with a parent is a really wonderful thing. Hare Krishna, what to speak of sharing with a life partner, a husband or a wife or a companion, to be able to share love, real love, which is love of God. So the people that come into our life, that's really what preaching is all about, is to share love of God. That's really what it's all about. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And that's how love of God is spread, by one person whoever happens to be infected with it, with love of God, sharing it with someone else. And then they get to taste it also. So sharing love of God, sharing this love. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The Christians, the ecstatic Christians, the born-again spirited Christians, that have this kind of experience, and others to whatever degree, they refer to as like witnessing, but really it's sharing love of God. You're having some experience in a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. You're experiencing something extraordinary, and you share your experience. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. It's kind of like having a disease and getting somebody else infected by your disease. It spreads like it's infectious. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Just being around someone who's like that, bound to pick up something. A lot of times people don't understand it, they're very resistant, and Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and they become a little aggressive, Hare Krishna, trying to make you feel like there's something wrong with you, because you're experiencing ecstasy in love of God. There's something wrong with you. Hare Krishna, you might look a little drunk, or it might not be so coherent necessarily, but Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, all kinds of things happen. Even, let's say, even mundane love, we know. We say mundane. There's really no such thing as mundane, because all love comes from God. He's the reservoir of all love. He's the reservoir of pleasure. He's the reservoir of every imaginable mood of love, whether unrequited love or love in full bloom, optimistic love, pessimistic love, angry love, jilted love, all these different moods that take place in a loving exchange. Love. I'm speaking more or less of the conjugal mood between lovers. That's where it finds its highest intensity. And the Lord is the reservoir of all of that. It's all coming from Him, and then, it's kind of reflected through the illusory energy in different ways. But all of those moods and loving sentiments, He's the reservoir of all of that, and it's all unlimited. They're unlimited songs that can be written in these different moods of love. It's unlimited. Hare Krishna, is a vast ocean of love, really. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. The ecstatic devotee is really drowning in that ocean, is what's happening. Drowning in it. You're kind of totally intoxicated. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Because that's all they see. That's all they see is this. Like when a person is in love, there's a song, what is it? There were birds, I didn't hear them singing. There were flowers, and it was spring, and I didn't notice until there was you, and then all the senses become enlivened, and they're in love, like it's an intoxicated state. Hare Krishna, well, that's Krishna. That's love of God, is like that. If it's like that in an ordinary relationship in the material world, people are like surcharged with, there were birds, but I never heard them, and there were flowers everywhere, and the sun was shining, and I didn't notice until there was you. If that's happening, those kinds of things are happening in a relationship on this material plane. Hare Krishna, where somebody becomes so absorbed in this loving sentiment toward another person That's all I can think about. I mean, it's like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, so focused. Then what to speak of a loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It's going to be that and so much more. Unlimited, eternal, full of knowledge, and completely ecstatic and blissful. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So sometimes the people that come into our life, we have exchanges with, and we share something with, we share love with, we feel love toward them, and they also feel some love toward us. This is actually sharing love of God with each other, just like sharing prasadam. So a relationship like that is very, very valuable. Hare Krishna. It's not some official relationship. These things happen by Krishna's arrangement in a kind of spontaneous way. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And sometimes it's confused for lust or some sexual thing. But that's not what it is. Not for a devotee. Because devotees are looking for Krishna in their relationship with Krishna, which is a loving relationship. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when these kinds of situations come, very powerful, make a lot of advancement really quickly, just from that relationship. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's a real heart opener. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, and it's quite obviously Krishna working through the devotees to try, and they can help each other. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the great value of devotee association, to find association like that. It's rare. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's powerful. Very powerful. Hare Krishna, and a whole new plateau of words. What good are they really? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. A whole new plateau is reached. Leave it at that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A whole new depth, a whole new range of experience. More access to the ecstatic emotions is opened up. It's like a door opens up. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, because it's Krishna acting through someone. Bilvamangal Thakur had that experience. It's a very famous story, but that's what happened to him. Bilvamangal Thakur. That's what happened. He was attached in a mundane way to a prostitute. Prostitutes are part of Vedic society. They fulfill, they perform a service for men that want to experience different kinds of relationships outside of marriage. Instead of bothering other ladies who are trying to remain chaste to their husbands or whatever. The prostitutes provide that service, so society remains stable. And so Bilva Mangal, he was like that. In a previous life, he'd made a lot of advancement in spiritual life. And so he took birth. He didn't quite make it out of the material world. But he made a lot of advancement. He had a spiritual master and he was practicing, but he didn't quite make it. So it's described that what happens when someone is like that is they get a good birth. Either a rich family or a Brahminical family, something where life isn't just like an animal struggle for existence. They have facility. So Bilva Mangal Thakur, he took birth in a well-to-do family. So he didn't have to worry and scrounge around, for his next meal. He wasn't living in poverty. He had everything he needed. But that's a little dangerous too, because then you just become kind of lazy and you just try to enjoy the senses. So it can be a problem. It's a benediction, but it can also be a problem. So for Bilva Mangal Thakur, it was a problem. And he was behaving irresponsibly and just living off the facilities that he'd been given to enjoy his senses as much as possible. So when his father passed away, he wasn't a very disciplined person, Bilva Mangal, and he became restless. And even at his father's own funeral ceremony, he didn't want to hang around. All he could think about was the prostitute that he would spend time with. That's all he could think about. He didn't want to be at a funeral. Let me go see Chintamani. The heck with this. Life's too short to mess around with us. He left. But it's the duty of the son to see to the final preparations of the father, but he neglected his duty. So he's, kind of degraded, actually. Hare Krishna, in a rich family, but he was degraded, irresponsible like that, ungrateful. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And it was difficult to get to her that evening. There was a storm, and he couldn't get across the river. He was trying to get across the river with the rain coming and the wind, and the waves were high. He grabbed onto what he thought was a log. Turned out to be a corpse. Yeah, he got to the other side of the river. And then he's at her gate finally. He's all wet, exhausted. But he's going to go see Chintamani, and he's going through all these difficulties to get there. And her door's locked. The gate to her compound is locked. And she can't hear him trying to get in, a bell or knocking on it or whatever. She couldn't hear it because of the rain and the wind and everything. So he tried to climb over the wall, and he grabbed onto a branch. It turned out to be a snake. So he's going through all these difficulties, but he got over the wall. And finally he's at the door. He's banging on the door. Let me in, let me in. It's Bilva Mangal. So she opens the door, and he's like a drowned rat, She takes one look at him, and she says, it was her spiritual master speaking. She takes one look at him, she says, oh my God, if you had this much desire and attachment for Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, you'd be a pure devotee by now. Somehow or other, hearing those words, he remembered. It snapped him out of his frivolous behavior. It sobered him up immediately. It was a heart-to-heart transmission. It was his spiritual master speaking through the prostitute. And it turned his life in the direction of Krishna rather than just wasting it on frivolity. So the Lord works through people without, in a very spontaneous way. I mean, worked through this prostitute, gave him the instruction that he needed to reawaken his desire for love of God. If you had this much desire and attraction for Krishna, you'd be a pure devotee by now. Snapped him out of it. Hare Krishna, Hare, he went to Vrindavan. Hare Krishna, Krishna. And he was there chanting and meditating and doing his writing. He's written some beautiful poems, Hare, songs. He's very well known throughout all India, Bilva Mangal Thakur. So the Lord works through other people like that. Hare, not necessarily in an official way. Hare Krishna. It could be like for Bilva Mangal Thakur, it's through the mouth of a prostitute. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So when those things happen, it's really powerful. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I had that happen to me, an instance like that, when I was a young adult, and I was institutionalized. I'd taken some drugs, and I wouldn't talk to anybody. Nobody knew what to do with me, so I was admitted to a mental hospital. I was a young person, early 20s. At that time, there was a lot of experimentation with drugs. The drugs now that people take aren't like the mind-altering drugs that the young people at that time were experimenting with. And so I was experimenting with some of these consciousness-expanding drugs. But Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Now that I found Krishna, I mean, who needs drugs, you know? Hare Krishna. What is it? Stay high forever. So, but back then, I had done that, and no one knew what to do with me because I wouldn't talk to anybody. It was like in an altered state. And so I was in a mental institution, and I wouldn't talk to anybody. I was thinking, you know, I want to know what's going on. I need some real knowledge, something I can really use. It's going to make me really happy in life. And everything just seems so superficial to me. Nobody seems to know anything. So I'm not going to talk to anyone until I get some answers. That's really what it was. It wasn't so much the drugs. That was my consciousness. And I had taken that vow that I wouldn't talk to anybody until I got some answers that made sense to me. So I wouldn't talk to anybody. And but I noticed in this mental hospital, people would take their shoe off, scream, and break a window. So I thought, well, you know, this is one of the only times that I'm ever going to be able to get away with doing something like that, because that's what everybody in here does. So I'm going to do it too, because they all do it. It's the only time I can get away with it, when it's considered normal. But I only had sneakers, so I went to the window and I was banging on the window with my sneaker. And a woman that I'd never seen before, one of the nurses, I'd never seen her before, and I never saw her again, was dressed all in white. Now, most of the nurses there didn't wear that kind of outfit, all in white. They had like little, you know, service jackets on, but they weren't dressed like all in white, from a little white cap with a white shirt or thing and a big long white skirt all the way to the floor. They weren't dressed like that. She was the only one dressed like that. And she told me, stop that immediately. Come with me. And so I stopped. And I said, see what's going on. Because I wasn't going to talk to anybody till I got some answers. And, somebody's got to have some answers. And she took me into the private lounge where the nurses would have their conferences, big long conference table. The patients didn't usually go in there. I was sitting at one end holding my sneaker, and she was at the other end. And it was, I remember very distinctly, like the sound of her nurse's skirts there fluttering, and she was standing still, but there was making a swooshing sound. She's standing still. Go figure that out. And she's all dressed in white, and I'm sitting there holding my sneaker. And she said, and this was, my Bilva Mangal Thakur moment, okay? She said, there's nothing wrong with you. The only thing wrong with you is you have no faith in God. Now, when she said that, see, God wasn't even a possibility for me. Had nothing, God wasn't, I wasn't looking for God. I was looking for answers. I didn't know there was a God. Who knows? I don't know. I was asking people, can they tell me something? Nobody could tell me anything. I asked different teachers and professors. I asked even clergymen. Didn't tell me about God, believe it or not. Actually, I couldn't get to see the clergy because he and his wife had gone to the movies that night. I called him. I wanted to discuss with the clergy, but he was at the movies with his wife and kids that night. They'd gone to see the Planet of the Apes. I was like, I couldn't get any answers from anybody. And one professor that I asked, he told me that he doesn't know anything either, even though he has everything that anybody could want in life. And because he doesn't know those answers, sometimes he wants to kill himself. My professor told me that, right? I'm like, oh my God, somebody's got to know something around here. Somebody's got to know something. And that's why I'm not going to talk to anybody till I get some answers. And it was when that person, all dressed in white, spoke. It was what she said, but it was also the vibration that she put out, because she was doing a heart-to-heart transmission, because she had some love for God. Okay, she had that. And when she spoke, she transmitted. It was in the vibration. It was in her words. And it echoed in my heart. I could feel it echoing. Love for God, love for God, love for God, love for God. It was like echoing. Love for God, love for God, love for God, love for God, love for God. Faith, you have faith in God, faith in God, faith in God, faith in God. It was echoing. She only said it once. There's nothing wrong with you, except you don't have any faith in God. Faith in God, faith in God, faith in God, faith in God, faith in God. I was like, whoa. Wow. Something happened, because she was sharing her faith in God. It wasn't necessarily love for God yet. That's coming now, later, much later, in Krishna. But what started it out, and has to start it out, is faith in God. Faith that there is God, right? And that's what that person gave me. They gave me faith in God because they had faith in God. Because they had faith in God, they could give me faith in God. And it worked. I mean, it was just echoing. And then I started to see things differently. I opened up my hearing. That's what I was looking for. So then I thought, okay, if there is God, I'm going to find him. And I was out of that institution in a couple days with a full scholarship to go to a university to study psychology. Go and figure that out, right? Which I lasted about 2 weeks. And, watching a little rat run around running around a hamster wheel, I was like, no, you can keep your scholarship. No, this isn't it. This is not it, and it was very shortly after that I wandered into the Krishna temple. I just sort of wandered in there. And the first time I went, I stayed. That was it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. There's a lot of other little things. But the idea, and what I'm thinking about now, is how the Lord works through other people. And it isn't always who we think it is going to be. For Bilva Mangal Thakur was a prostitute. For me, it was this nurse in a hospital. And there have been others in my life that have done that too. And I would like to think that maybe I've been able to do that for others. I know I've done things for others that I don't think it helped them very much. Stumbling around in my darkness and my blindness. But whatever little bit of light may be coming out of me, if I've been able to help someone like that, share something of value, to spark something within them, I'd like to think that maybe I've been able to do that, maybe even once, would be nice. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, just trying to share some stuff. It's getting late. And if they'll let me back into Mangal Artik tomorrow morning, I mean, kind of like a maniac in there. If they'll let me back in, I guess I'll go back to the Artik and Hare Krishna, take advantage of the Sankirtan before the deity, performing the Sankirtan Yagna before the deity. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, I don't know that any of that can help somebody, but, it's just what came out of my mouth, and that's what came out, so. Hare Krishna.